Welcome to the tool for resource insight, allocation, and graphical evaluation, or TRIAGE, a tool designed to help with patient care decisions in emergency departments. When a patient arrives in an emergency department, a nurse performs a cursory examination to determine the severity of their injuries and then assigns them to a team for treatment. This process, known as triage, requires the nurse to keep a mental record of how busy each team currently is. The nurse must not only keep in mind how many patients a team is caring for, but also the severity of each of these patients. Given that an emergency department may be handling up to 50 patients at any given time, this is a task that quickly becomes overwhelming. Triage is a tool designed to visualize the current workload of the doctors and nurses working in a hospital's emergency department. By reducing the cognitive load of the triage nurse, the process of patient assignment can be done faster, more accurately, and with greater efficiency. Let's take a look at the tool. Triage is divided into two sections, the team panel below and the filter panel above. The team panel displays the workload for each doctor or nurse on each team. Each row represents an individual team. For example, doctors 9 and 11, as well as nurses 18, 22, 3, 33, and 6, are all members of the red team. On the left, one can see all of the patients assigned to the team. Each icon represents a single patient. The larger the icon, the more severe a patient's injuries are. Additionally, the color of the icon indicates the patient's severity. In this example, the more red an icon is, the more severe a patient's condition is, though the colors can be customized in the options dialog by clicking here. To the right, one can see each doctor or nurse assigned to the team, a bar chart summarizing their workload, and each patient assigned to that doctor or nurse. Each patient is listed with their severity icon, age, sex, and wait time represented by the small gray icons to the left. By mousing over a patient, each assignment for that patient is highlighted. We can see here that this patient is assigned to Dr. 11 and Nurse 6. The bar chart is a summary of the overall workload. Its height is based on a weighted percentage of the number of assigned patients, the severity of their injuries, and the maximum number of patient assignments allowed for a nurse or doctor. The color of the bar is the average severity of the assigned patients. In the Filters panel, a user can alter the information being displayed based on several criteria. This panel is divided into multiple sections. The first section contains a button which brings up the options dialog, allowing one to select colors and change the maximum allowed patients for teams, doctors, or nurses. The next section filters out the nurses and doctors based on several criteria. One can filter out by type of caretaker, in other words, doctor or nurse, by hours remaining in that caretaker's shift, by the number of patients assigned to that caretaker, or the average ESI of the caretaker's patients. The ESI, or Emergency Severity Index, is determined by the triage nurse after the initial examination and indicates the severity of the patient's injuries, with a value of 1 being most severe. The third section filters out the patients themselves. A user can choose to see only those patients with specific ESIs, or those patients that have been in the emergency department for a certain amount of time. The last two sections are strictly informational. The first portion illustrates the number of patients that have arrived at the emergency department but have yet to be assigned to a team. The second portion is a legend, describing the patient representations as used below. Finally, by clicking on the bar below the filters, a user can toggle between a summary view of caretakers' workloads and a detailed view of the patients. Let's walk through a few examples. First, let's find an appropriate team to assign our next patient to. There's a lot of information on the display right now, so let's toggle the summary view to get an idea of how busy each team is. It appears that the red team is the least busy. Let's see if we can verify this by using the filters. We will begin by filtering out those caretakers with more than 4 patients. Next, let's start limiting the average severity of a caretaker's patients. Eventually, we see that there is only one doctor, Doctor 11, and two nurses, Nurses 6 and 26, that meet this criteria. However, patients are generally assigned to both a doctor and a nurse. As such, it seems that the red team is in fact the best choice. Additionally, we know exactly which doctor and nurse we should assign the patient to. Next, let's find the patients in most need of care. We will begin by hiding the less severe patients. Next, let's assume that a patient that has not been in the emergency department for very long is in greater need of care. Thus, we will begin filtering out the patients by their time in the hospital. Eventually, we see that there are two patients who are in particular need of attention. We can now focus our resources on these patients to ensure that they receive the care that they need. This concludes the demonstration of triage. Thank you for watching.